I physically went back and Googled, found Joe Rogan Experience episode 1, and literally was in stupefaction mode. He had like a guy standing over his shoulder. First of all, there was like a bubble effect, kind of like on the thing.
Okay, all right. So
on the
graphics
screen
were tight.
It was wow. And then he had this dude like standing over his shoulder, like telling him where to click on Twitter and what to do and what button to do. For like the first 5 minutes, he was like, "So, all right, so we got the camera on," and like,
he's half in the bag or 3/4.
not
in the
even.
bag,
He wasn't
stoned as
even
hell.
considering a bag at
There
this
was no
point.
bag. The bag
he was
was
just like
long
going.
gone.
He was like, "I'm doing a podcast and."
And we're
I have
doing
no
it now.
idea, and I'm doing it now, and we're figuring it out. We're literally figuring out what to click. Oh, push record. Okay, so now we're live.
Now we're live.
He was literally. I'm thinking, from this to Elon Musk in 1,800 episodes.
I was gonna say, is it like 1,300 or so at least?
Some
right?
absurd amount.
Yeah.
And it's just it's like, this is a perfect example of. You look at that first episode, and I'm sure he can't look at it, right?
Right,
It's like me. You know
he's
how
never
often
seen
I
it.
watch my own content because
Sure.
it's not like I cringe.
I was 2 years into podcasting before I ever listened to one of our podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I'm like, why? And it dawned on me, well, maybe you do it so you get better and you figure out what you did wrong, but never dawned on me until. Joe Rogan was, because I watched the Elon Musk, and that was the first Joe Rogan podcast I had watched or listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy observant, man. That guy pays so much attention to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Every time Musk's attention faltered or changed, he just rolled with whatever was going on in the moment. So present, such good questions, insightful, smart as hell.
Mm-hmm.
I will consume more of his content.
You were basically saying one of the things that Ted Nugent was saying on the show.
Which is
one
one that is going to be one of the next ones I watch.
It was really good, a 3-hour podcast. But it was, Ted was saying, comedians are geniuses.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe was kind of, demurred a little bit, obviously. But he's like, no, you see things differently and you look at it differently and you point things out that other people don't see. And it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And
you ask the right questions, or at least questions in a way that others wouldn't ask.
Yeah, and there's a genius behind the observational skills of the comedian, the professional comedian, how they see things differently. Because how else can you go up there and say something that is just hilarious? But anybody else could walk up and they got nothing. I mean,
Right.
you got to look at the world in a different way.
And it's, I forget that Rogan was a comedian for a while before
Still is.
UFC. Does he still do stand-up?
Yeah.
Does he go out?
Yeah, and he's doing his specials on, streaming them on the internet.
Okay.
He's big into martial arts and working out, and
Yeah.
it's something about weed. Maybe he might be into weed a little bit.
I've heard. It sounds like he got Elon in a little bit of trouble there the
It
other day.
may have been.
Although,
a little bit.
was it his fault or was it Elon's fault? I don't know.
It was a peer pressure thing.
Totally.
He's like, I'm sitting here with Joe Rogan, so I'm gonna hit this doobie.
He's in California. It was totally legal. He should have been able to
I'm
smoke
not
a joint. Yeah.
saying anything to
No,
him. I'm just saying if he doesn't smoke doobies, why would you start smoking a doobie? Just because you're sitting
a
with Joe
blunt.
Rogan? It was a blunt. Yeah,
It was
he
tobacco
does.
and marijuana.
He says he prefers the blunt and
was-
explains why.
Thing was
But
huge,
it's like if you're hanging out with Joe Rogan and you want to smoke a blunt with Joe Rogan, okay, great. But if you don't smoke blunts, then why are you doing that?
I'm going to go with because he could, and it seemed like a good idea.
Could be too. I'm just saying maybe it's a little bit of Elon Musk fell victim to some peer pressure.
Well, it's probably easy to get sucked into that space. Now, I purposefully watched the entire thing. Right?
Wow, okay.
I didn't just watch the clips of him high, because I wanted to see,
Did he get high?
Did he? Elon? You could tell that he was a little bit off base, and they had a conversation about it point blank where Joe Rogan said, "You don't really feel any different, do you?" And he goes, "No, not at all." And Joe's like, "Exactly." Right? Because ultimately, if you're smoking weed, the state of mind and the state of consciousness just isn't that different than if you're not smoking weed. Right? People, whatever, people think what people think, but it's
Maybe
Just not that
Elon
different.
Musk is in a completely different state of mind all the time. Because
Right.
who else just goes, I got an idea. We're going to dig tunnels.
We're going to dig tunnels.
I'm going to make an
LA.
electric car company.
Tunnels in L.A.
And not only are we going to build a rocket company that puts things, but we're going to land them we're going to float a barge out in the ocean and we're going to land the rockets on it.
It's going to land right,
Right.
there. Because where else would it land?
I mean, you have to be high
Yeah,
naturally.
Yeah.
You got to be tapping into some kind of part of.
So I'm going to dig tunnels in L.A. as a concept, as an idea, as a construct. That's far out. Actually physically digging tunnels in L.A., which is going on as we speak.
Boring tunnels.
Right? Boring, doing whatever. Like, how? Imagine walking into the city offices in Detroit and saying, you know what? We got too much traffic. We're going to dig some tunnels under 94. We're going to need a permit, and we're just going to get started. How? Who? Wait,
I don't know. You
what?
might be able to, in Detroit, you might be able to, they might just go, that sounds pretty good. Let us know if you need anything.
Yeah, right.
Try not to hit the rocket fiber.
Try not to hit Dan Gilbertville, and we're going to be okay, right?
I think he actually proposed it to Dugan to do a tunnel from Metro Airport to downtown. I think that's actually a proposal that's actually moving forward.
Well, in some extent, it probably should be, right? I'd like to see a tunnel from, like, let's call it Troy to downtown. That would be kind of cool.
Not
No.
when your favorite buddy's in charge.
Yeah, no. Of Troy or
Burt Brooks.
Oh yeah, we'd have to send him from Troy to Clarkston. That'd be a lot easier.
He'd have to stop at 8.5 Mile and transfer to the boat.
Yes, right. We'll have to have a tunnel
Well,
to the tunnel.
I'm sorry, Brooks, but the boats don't come here. I know.
There's no other way. If we can't have this, yeah.
Can't help it if you don't know how to sail.
Listen, it's not your fault. Man, it's got to be somebody. And we'll put it on the Rouge River. It should be good. We'll be fine. It's a weird thing about how disconnected those two areas are. Well, this could go sideways pretty quickly, though.
Why would it not?
He's gonna run again too, dude, and he's gonna win again.
Oh yeah,
Be in
He'll
office
be-
for
he'll be-
like 700 years. It's nuts.
absolutely.
I got a good friend of mine that's running for state representative, and she's like, she campaigned her ass off, right, for the prelims, and now that we're coming up to November, I'm like, so you must be exhausted. She's like, no. Living in Republican territory, we've got no problem.
Got this down. All I have to do is, the real race was the primary, and now I just have to stay alive.
As long as I don't rape anybody, and even that's debatable to some extent, I should be okay. Mm-hmm. So,
Well, that's what gerrymandering's for.
that's.
Did you ever see John Dingle's district
No.
after they redistricted Michigan? It was like, I think it covered 3 counties. At one point, it was like no more than a mile wide. It was like 75 miles long.
Probably looked like a key.
They're like, let's go find all of the Democrats and draw a box around some of them and give that to
Yeah.
John Dingell, and the rest of them that's for us.
We the campaign finance and gerrymandering. Those would be 2 things that if we could just make those go away, seems like it would. I don't know, make politics a little more real. Let's call it.
You mean take the money out of politics?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's always follow the money.
It's always follow the money, right?
Follow the money at the federal level, follow it at the state level, follow it at the local level. Here's an idea. In order to build a sidewalk outside, let's send all the money to the federal government and then apply for it to bring it back and build that sidewalk. Somewhere along the way, somebody's figured out how to grift on that.
Somebody's, there's a lot of grifting going.
There's an entire thing about that.
Because you and I could go dig a hole and go get some cement from Home Depot, mix it up, and probably have the sidewalk done this afternoon.
Pretty sure we could find somebody to do that sidewalk locally,
Yeah.
and have the city maybe just cut a check
Right?
and decide. We probably could figure out where to put that sidewalk too.
Yeah.
I look at all the federal dollars now on the roads, and then what the federal dollars coming back on when they're rebuilding roads in southeast Oakland County, and you're like, what in the hell is this thing here for, right? And it's like, well, it's part of the way, it's a federal law. You have to put this frickin' strobe light in the middle of it with a crosswalk and a drawbridge. For what? There's nobody on either side of these things. Well, it's part of the federal law. So we just spent twice as much money on this road to put this fancy crosswalk in that has like, you know, it's just ridiculous.
Well, there's a school 3.5 miles around the corner. They might need to walk across the street.
They just took the road by my house, and they came in. It needed to be fixed, but their definition of fixing it was to come through, and it was 2 lanes in each direction. So now it's 1 lane in each direction with a median in the middle. But it's not like a median that goes the whole length. It's like kind of like a left turn lane. They put bike lanes on either side of it because there's actually in 15 years been 2 people riding a bike down that street.
Well, that's going to change, though. Everybody's biking.
So they got that right. There might be the same 2 guys in the next 15 years. In the winter, probably, too. Right. Because that's really important.
In Detroit, yeah, we don't have any snow.
So they put like this left turn lane in, and then they put all these medians in the middle of the left turn lane, like every 200 feet, and put these crosswalks in there. And the medians that are in there have curbs, and they sort of extend into the travel lane a few inches, and they're about 8 inches high. And I'm like, this has got to be a federal law, because when there's 12 inches of snow on this road, cars are gonna flip over forward. They're gonna do an endo on these curbs. There's nothing that you could. How are you gonna not hit this curb? They had one in downtown Royal Oak by the post office, and when they finally opened it, I almost hit it. And I'm like, God, somebody's going to hit that thing. So like 2 weeks later, they cut it in half lengthwise and moved it over like 4 feet. Because I'm pretty sure everybody,
47 people hit it.
But it's like, why do you need that? And it's a crosswalk that goes to nowhere. It comes from a parking lot and a post office across the street to a railroad track. Because there's like probably a lot of people jumping off this freight train that need to go to the post office. So we got a median there.
Hobos got a mail, dude. I wonder if, are there still hobos? Are there still people that just like hop on a train and go across the country? Because that would be pretty sweet.
I don't know. We'd probably just check YouTube because they probably got a reality show.
Right, because that would be cool. I can see the whole curb thing, right, with little signage on the bottom of it says brought to you by the wheel manufacturers of America. I think that would be just such a great play for them.
Yeah, sure.
If I can smash up or scratch up or wreck my wheels in any way, shape, or form, I'm all in.
The Tie Rod Association of NAFTA and the European Union lobbied hard.
We're going to need higher curbs more frequently in snowy areas.
In the middle of the lane.
For just no apparent reason.
Cream into them. So I got a question for you.
Sure.
Roundabout or no roundabout?
Oh, so we, out in Commerce, I drive through there all the time, they put 3 or 4 roundabouts in a row. Mm-hmm. Now, it's kind of interesting. If you're coming north to south, the first 2 or 3 of them are kind of like practice roundabouts because they're in, soon-to-be neighborhoods. Nothing really exists there. And then the next one's kind of a big honkin' at Pontiac Trail, where there's a ton of traffic. There's a Walmart M5 dumps in there, and so it's like a stress
Parliament.
test. Yeah, it's you can actually just end up doing circles for a half an hour. I'm a big fan. I always go to the far right, and probably not follow the official roundabout
I had a feeling
rules.
You would be a big fan.
Yeah. So
see, this is where one of the very few things where you and I completely differ. I will drive to Canada to avoid a roundabout. I will start sweating.
Why do you not like it?
I don't think anybody knows what the rules are. I think you just lay on the horn and drive and try not to hit somebody.
Do you think people close their eyes and go, I hope I make it through,
I think a third of the people in there have their eyes closed.
I think it's possible.
A third of the people know what they're doing and they're swearing at everybody.
Yeah.
And the other third of the people are just trying to survive it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a totally stupid idea.
I think, it's funny because they say that it reduces accidents, right? Supposedly, because people are supposed to be paying so much more attention in the roundabout scenario than they do at a stoplight, it reduces accidents. At least once a week, I drive through that intersection at Pontiac Trail and Martin or M5, and there's 2 cars up on the curb. Now, it's a sloping curve, right? So I don't think you're going to ruin any wheels on this, but they're up on the curb with the cops behind them because obviously they just smashed their cars.
My first roundabout I went through, I was going up the Van Dyke Expressway, and there was an accident or something on the Van Dyke Expressway, so all of a sudden it was closed. So I got off at Van Dyke Road. So coming off the exit on there, I'm towing the camper for the first time, right? And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh shit, I got to get off. So I get off and I'm like, oh, well, we'll just cut up through Utica. And all of a sudden I'm coming off the exit with a camper and I'm like, what in the actual fuck is this? And so I did what I said. I closed my eyes and laid on the horn and just drove into it with a camper. And I don't know how we made it through.
Are you sure you did?
I did. I don't know if anybody else did, but I
did. You look at the back? Was there a bunch of carnage? Right?
No,
crushed metal.
No, my eyes were closed.
Right.
And so,
hey, honey, did we kill anybody in the roundabout?
I just don't like roundabouts.
Yeah, that's I would imagine driving it in a big truck with a significantly larger appendage hanging off the back would be an uncomfortable scenario. Driving it in a Dodge Challenger, however, is, you know, I'm going to go with mildly entertaining, right? Because, you know, you can do stuff. It's kind of cool like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I suppose your mileage may vary depending on how you're rolling through.
I guess, yeah. Or if you know it's coming.
Yeah, that's the surprise.
I've had a little bit of practice on them now, but I still avoid them.
Are there any out this way? Obviously Van Dyke, but that's not exactly close to where
Not
we're
really.
sitting.
Not so much southeast. It's all north and west. I don't think there's many on the east side. It feels like it's like a West Oakland County kind of a phenomenon.
West Bloomfield's got a bunch. Commerce has a bunch. And then, you know, out toward Brighton, which is not Oakland County, but they have a few out there too. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's weird to me. The one at Orchard Lake in 14 Mile, where Northwestern comes in, right? So Farmington Hills, West Bloomfield intersection, it is such a clusterfuck that not only is there this ginormous three-way roundabout, there's actual stoplights before getting into the roundabout. If you ever wanted to see execution gone horribly wrong,
okay, so there's a perfect example of maybe this isn't a good place for a roundabout.
Maybe. It's
if
so bad.
If you need a traffic light to regulate your roundabout, you might not need a roundabout.
So I thought, okay, well, it's new. Maybe they're doing this to alert people to the roundabout. It's a year and a half later, the lights are still
that whole entire intersection there was always a mess anyways.
And they rebuilt
even with a 9-way stop that it was. And it's not like there's a lot of population growth there going on.
No, man, it's as dense as it's going to be at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So whoever the civil engineers were, they were mildly uncivil there. Needs work, man. It's an improvement opportunity, as we like to call it.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking the other day about agencies and cooperation and competition. Mm-hmm. I know you love the phrase co-opetition and comperation. Yeah, that's what it was. Comperation. It's interesting because the virtual nature of business as it is today, and the low overhead of it, it seems like some of the more innovative stuff is going on with people that maybe 10 years ago you would have said, oh, they're a competitor. And now it's sort of like, there's 10 million things. You say marketing, it's like,
take your pick.
What the hell? I mean, that's like everything's marketing. Marketing is the new money. And marketing's the new accounting. It touches everything. And when somebody says they have a marketing agency, that means almost nothing to me. Somebody says they have an advertising agency, that means almost nothing to me. Content studio means nothing, right? If there's 10,000 things and you put 10,000 of those people in a room, probably all 10,000 of them are doing something slightly differently. And so it seems like what I seem to be seeing now is that there's this new model of virtual agencies banding together with other virtual agencies to sort of spin up and form these special purpose projects and then disbanding and, moving around. It's like I remember a long time ago, I read an article in Business Week when I was like a teenager or something. And don't ask me why. I saw that look on your face. What the hell are you reading that for?
Gone through all the Playboys. Now it's Business
looking
Week.
For they always have an article with
it was for the jokes.
But it was talking about virtual corporations.
Okay.
And how 25 years ago, they were talking about it in the future as how, people were going to come together and sort of spin up, and they, maybe even for minutes, they would spin together these virtual agencies, these networks of people who came together to do something and then disbanded, or sometimes they'd stay together for a long time, years and years. And then sometimes they'd be part of this network, and they'd also be a part of this other network. And these things were just sort of going to form and disform. And I think, now this is obviously happening. I think something like 30% of America, the workforce is freelance. Mm-hmm. So they're a big portion of that. But I think that the people who are doing all the innovation now are also sort of forming virtual organizations of other virtual organizations. Almost like every time you come together to do some sort of a piece of content or a show or a thing, you might wind up with 5 different virtual agencies with 4 people each creating these. I don't even know what you call them. I guess they're just sort of like execution networks.
Yeah, it's almost like a specific project network, right? So they're going to come together, they're going to work on a campaign, they're going to work on an idea, they're going to execute and put it together, and then they're going to spin off and go do their thing. If you're doing that right, you are focused on your area of expertise, because to your earlier point, you can't be a marketing generalist anymore. It doesn't exist. There's way too much shit for you to know. And by the time you learn any of it, it's already changed. It's different. And there's 17 other new things that you didn't even know existed. So as a result, get really, really strong in one particular area, then partner with people that overlap, right? I was on the phone before we hopped on the mic talking to a young lady that, she used to be an SEO expert, and now she's really focused on WordPress. And, she realizes that she can't be both. So she's partnered up with somebody that's great at Facebook advertising, right? She's going to go hang out with somebody that's SEO certified. She's going to go hang out with somebody that writes content, someone that does video, and build kind of her own network, which is such a necessity, because if you're great at what you do and you partner with other people that are great at what they do, you can actually increase the amount of business and the amount of referrals, right? Because now you got 5 people out there looking for business for you, as opposed to you just hustling yourself. It's how it has to be done.
And then you just have to get to the part where you're sort of declaring. I think there's a disconnect a little bit between everybody saying, well, I do everything.
Right.
And then when you're trying to work with your other partners, they're like, well, we do everything too. Because out there selling it, it's like, well, we're a full service everything. We've got it all. And then you're like, well, where's the conflict come in there, right? We can't all be.
It's constant conflict in that scenario.
And it's like I think the new skill is management of those types of relationships, to say, you get this stuff, you get that, you're this. It's like this sort of quasi, almost like it's like OPEC, right? You got like this cartel.
So different than the analogy I was using.
I don't, yeah.
Go on, OPEC. Let's hear this. I can't wait to see how this crashes and burns.
It's like you get this kind of work, you get the AI stuff, you get this, and then you're really good at motion graphics, and so you handle that. You're a design house, right? You're really good at Facebook ads. We'll push that over to you. But then you got to be like, so now you're giving up the inside of these organizations, these meta organizations, you're giving up access to all the clients. So there has to almost be like this code of, and sometimes I think that's contractual, but I think even more importantly, it's like a code.
It's like a code, right?
Between
like
people,
honor.
like who owns this relationship, who is the, and you're never going to backdoor somebody.
Can't break the code.
You break the code, you're
dead.
Blackballed
forever.
You're
throughout the industry.
Deader than a doornail on it, right?
You have to move. If you break the code, you have to go to Anchorage or Zimbabwe. Those are the 2 places.
And it can reach all the way there, because the Facebook ad guy is probably in Zimbabwe,
right? And they're probably opening up ads about you breaking the code, right? So hey, click here and look, it's got 7,400 impressions in a second.
Yeah, it's like the future is here now. you know?
And I think it's been here. And I think a lot of people are running around waiting for it to happen, not realizing that it's been happening right under our noses for a long time.
Yep. That's like the singularity is near. No, it's here.
No.
AI is coming. AI is going to do this. AI is here.
AI is.
I think a lot of people miss the fact that it wasn't like an event, that it was sort of a gradual thing, but it changes so fast that it's probably a future shock kind of a thing. I think marketing is the same way now in general because everything's driven by AI. Even if you think, oh, I'm just trying to do SEO and Facebook ads. Okay, you just described the two biggest AI companies on Earth. You just said SEO, presumably because you're optimizing your Google organic search results. That's AI. Okay, speaking of AI, there goes the PhD in AI that just walked by.
Dr. AI just walked past the glass.
And so you've got SEO is AI, Facebook ads is AI, audience creation on Facebook is one of their strongest suits. So, and I think a lot of people are like, well, we're waiting for, AI to do that. It's like, no, everything is affected by this, but it's like Alvin Toffler's book, like Future Shock. The cycle goes so fast that if you miss one or a couple, you're so far outside of the loop on there that you're missing the fact that all of this happened. Right. And so you're sitting back saying, as a maybe somebody whose primary job is running a company and has marketing as one of the functions and departments, say, and you're not realizing that having not reviewed things in a couple of years that you just missed 8 cycles of something that's going so fast, and then you get into a room, and I've seen this happen where a person is saying, well, we got to figure out how to handle our digital, and then the person is talking about things at a level that's like 400 miles away from where this person is able to actually even comprehend the things that they're talking about. And that person still thinks that they're talking at a very simple level. It's very interesting right now because people were worried about, well, what happens when society runs away with this AI thing? And what happens to the people who are working and what happens to the workers? Okay, well, what happens to the companies that don't respond to this and don't understand, right? This is already happening to them. You see it all the time. I mean, Borders, anyone?
Hello.
Is it because that Borders couldn't figure out how to deliver books? No, it's because Amazon is an AI company. And they figured out, the AIs and things figured out a much more efficient way of building a business model around books. And it literally wiped them out.
Right, absolutely gone. Right, not like kind of around. I heard today Toys R Us is going to be making a comeback. Right, so Toys R Us filed major chapter 11 the other
chapter bad
chapter bankrupt, and all of a sudden now they're petitioning to come back. Right, so you would think, why in the hell would a brick and mortar company that had 30,000 square feet per store want to go through that and then come back and compete with Amazon? Well, it's because they had 30,000 square feet per store and wanted to figure out how to get rid of all of that lease, all of that space, open up a 1,500 square foot shop, show you 600 toys, and have a bunch of kiosks so you can order shit online.
Yep, and have a place to distribute it locally with the last mile of delivery in the gig economy.
And it's like...
that's a good point.
Yeah, didn't see that coming, did you? Hi, Jeffrey the giraffe. It'll be nice to see you again, you little cutie. Oh, my God.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you got Walmart, which is probably one of the greatest AI companies out there, which is, so much of their success is based on that.
Well, and it is, but I mean, it's interesting, right? We talk about AI here, and AI isn't really what people think AI is, right? And really, the greater function in AI is training the artificial intelligence what to look for. It's the inputs and what you're trying to measure. People are like, oh, well, the computers are just going to figure it out. The computers are only as smart as the people operating and telling the computers what to do. I don't think that changes. I'm willing to be wrong. You can weigh in.
No, you're right. I mean, 80% of artificial intelligence, 80% of the work is figuring out what the data is and putting it in a situation where you can actually feed it into a neural network, for example, to train it, and and then 19% more of that is tuning that neural network.
Yeah.
And then the
And
rest of it is, the rest of the 1% is you don't even know what the hell happened with it. It's like, well, that's
that's the magic.
really amazing, but
So
you're not writing an algorithm.
I go back to Walmart. I go back to Sam Walton. Sam Walton was brilliant. If he had 20 checkout lanes, checkout lane number 20, all 19 of them would be exactly the same. They'd have the same candy, the same toothpicks, the same dental floss and lighters in the same spot. And in aisle 20, it would be a bunch of shit that wasn't in any other one. And if you did well in aisle 20, you made it into the row in the other 19. So he was always testing and refining. And to some extent, this is what AI is, right?
He was A/B testing in the real world and using his own neural network in his head to do it. And now we have things that can do that more efficiently. And that's a perfect example of how to bring that down to a real level of a guy like Sam Walton doing that in the real world. All of these things that AI can make more efficient and do better, but even just in the marketing alone, it's all stuff that you do every day in the real world. You just have to create a mechanism to be able to do that with your customers.
And I think that's it. I think the people don't understand the practical applications because they don't really even understand what it is.
Right.
So we have plenty of artificial intelligence. I think we're lacking some real intelligence these days.
Or a connection to it. I mean, it came from so much of a academic world of things. And if you look at the academic papers, they're just opaque.
Right.
And probably partially on purpose that way.
Sure.
It makes no sense. And you look at the movies, and it's like, oh, okay, well, we got HAL 9000. It's not, none of that is actually it. So there's a disconnect between the perception of what it does on a practical basis and what can it do for me today. And then that it's a disconnect with that, but then there's also a cycle of, in the middle of it, of missing some of the key initial parts. It's almost as if you're jumping into calculus class, but you never took algebra.
Yeah, I think about it as like here you are looking at chapter 5. Okay, well, wait a second. Can I go back to chapter 1 real quick and give me the intro?
Yep.
In most of us, right, self-included, we miss that. Right, and so you start having a conversation, and you're starting at a level that's so much higher. And most people are too afraid, or too ashamed, or too worried, or give too much of a shit to say, "I don't know."
Right. Exactly.
So back up, slow down, tell me, catch me up. Right. Start there. You don't learn when you're talking. You only learn when you're asking questions and listening to the answers. Right. And most people that know a bunch of shit, normally, they're happy to share it. Right, it's like some of the most intriguing conversation that people get in is when they get to share their knowledge with other people who are genuinely interested. If you want to learn, ask.
And say I don't know.
And say I don't know for the
That's
love of
my favorite
God.
phrase.
Yeah, right.
I have no fucking idea.
I have no fucking clue, but I'm willing to find out. Or sometimes I'm not. You can't even say I don't know anymore. You can only say I don't know right now, and I don't give a shit enough to Google it.
That's a good point, yeah.
Right? Because if you really wanted to know 8 seconds later, you'd have a video, you'd have a write-up, you'd have a white paper. It's all right there.
Yep. Well, we can do surface level knowledge on a lot of that stuff, too. I think there's certain things that in order to do calculus, you do need algebra, you do need geometry, you do need trig, you do have to figure out how those triangles work. And so you got to Google 5 things.
Right.
But a learning path is hard to put together sometimes when you don't realize what the step 12 is. And you're like, well, I'm at step 0, and you don't realize that it's even a step 1 through 11 that you've got to go in sequence. And I think that's kind of where we're at now with how fast these things move. And there's like, I think it's like a section of society is moving that fast, and a section of society and the companies are moving that fast. And it is literally lightning speed. And then there's a lot of other people who are, it's the vast majority of the companies that are sort of sitting out there going, they don't know how to play, right? It's so fast. It's like standing on the side of a racetrack and everybody's going by at 170 miles an hour. And you're like, how do I merge in here in this tricycle and not get run over?
I'm
it's
walking.
It's like Cartman on his big wheel.
You will respect my authority. Hey, so I'm holding my fingers up, right, and showing the inch. And this is the amount of people that actually understand and are moving that fast, right? It's a tiny, almost infinitesimal amount. And what's crazy about that is there are people that are actually ahead of that curve, right? So there's a small amount of people that are playing on the curve, and then there are people in front of it. And that's what it's fascinating. I mean,
and if you're neither one of those, you need a guide.
You need a guide. There's a few of them.
You
right?
need a,
get a Sherpa.
You need a Sherpa. You need a digital Sherpa that's going to help you understand what the potential is, what you don't know, what you need to know, what the path is to get there, and how it applies to the existential risks of what you got going on right now. And if that's not keeping you up at night as a CEO, then you're on some seriously good meds.
Yeah, that would be nice, right? You could just sleep through the night, even though, like, ignorance can be bliss, though, right? If I don't know what I don't know,
if you're finding that bliss, I've never found a C-level person who is not worried about this kind of stuff, because it is an existential risk for them. And not knowing what you don't know is worse, I think, than knowing what you know or what you don't know. Right. It's like the known unknowns and the known knowns and the unknown unknowns. Right?
You got that out straight, too.
Did I Rumsfeldian that correctly?
You got that out straight. That was impressive.
If you're sitting back thinking, I don't know what I don't even know, and it's an existential threat to this organization that I'm responsible for with millions of dollars and thousands of people's livelihoods. Even if you've got tens or hundreds of employees, that's thousands of people that you're still sort of responsible for as the guy.
Clients,
and so this whole existential threat of this, it's like you really do need a person to come along and sort of bring you up to speed, because it's not that hard.
Don't get a ninja, stay away from the ninja.
A ninja or a guru?
Yeah, guru. Yeah. Guru's okay, right?
Yeah.
Guru literally means to bring from dark to light. But ninjas, like, they just chop shit up. You don't want all that.
And you can't even find them anyway. So every time you go look for one, they're like fucking on the ceiling.
Like, is there like 1-800 call ninja?
No, and they don't show up anyway. And then if they do, you're still looking right at them. You don't even know. It's no ninja,
It's like, you need a social media Rambo. That sounds tough.
Yeah, I don't think you need a social media anything right now. That's like saying I need a alphabet ninja.
An alphabet ninja.
Yeah, I think it goes past that. I think that's a problem in the industry in general right now, is what people think that they're looking for and what people who know what they're doing are actually trying to do, and the communication of those words and how they match up don't really do it. You got people running, I need somebody to do my social media and my digital. What the hell does that even mean anymore, right? Everything is all part of, like, social is part of, you don't do social. You don't do digital.
We were talking about the other day, right? These are tools, right? A website is a tool. SEO is a tool. Social media is a tool. Artificial intelligence is a tool.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you go out and you're shopping for one of these tools, you're going to talk to somebody who's good at these tools, and what are they going to sell you? The tool and their ability to use the tool.
Right.
But if you go and put a roof on top of a foundation of a house, but didn't build the rest of the structure of the house first, fails.
Or if you're out looking for SEO,
dude,
and then you're going to find a bunch of people who are willing to sell you SEO because there's a million people out there looking for it, and it's like, hold on a second, back up. You're talking about a website. Why do you have a website? You should have a network of web presences. Right, but there's nobody out there selling the network of web presences right now, because most of the people, back to this whole future shock thing, are walking around looking for SEO or somebody that's going to handle my website.
Right.
And it's a little bit more involved in that right now.
I love I'm going to do it on WordPress because I want to be in control of it and I want to manage it, and I don't want to have to wait for my web guy to make any changes.
I
right?
would suggest that if you can be in control of it, you've already done it wrong. If you can really put your head around the complexity of your presence digitally, you've missed it. Right? It's like saying
you're three future shocks behind.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Welcome to 2012.
Yeah. Netflix
Thank
isn't
you.
a website. Netflix is a content distribution system that produces and curates content and sells it to me, but they don't sell it to me on a website. They sell it to me through some bizarre app that happens to work on an LG TV. I don't even know where it came from. I don't know who wrote it. Probably some engineer at LG. Right.
So
And
let
I'm
me make
not
this
saying
real
it's
easy.
the greatest app or anything, but nobody at Netflix gives a shit that I have an app on my LG smart TV that logs into my account and consumes the content for me on there.
If you
And
like this, you'll like this.
It's not a website.
It is not a website. You know what? It's even beyond a digital footprint, right? Because I think about that from time to time. Well, what's the next layer of abstraction up? Well, you got to have some sort of footprint, right? And it's got to
The footprint isn't
customize
tangible,
all
though,
the things,
in a
right?
lot of cases.
Well, you
It's-
can't measure it, and you can't see it, and you can't think about it in a linear fashion. So, to your point, people are like, "Well, I don't even know what that means."
Right.
And
Well,
and they don't.
you can look at things that are tangible, but the reality is it's like an iceberg. The things that you can look at are sticking out of the water, but the giant robots talking to other giant robots behind the scenes and where all the actual work is getting done is that huge iceberg underneath. Now, I think an analogy for what a lot of people in the future shocked world are looking at is they're seeing an ice cube floating on the water, and they think they need to handle this ice cube. And what they don't realize is there's nothing underneath that ice cube, right? That's when you're talking about, well, we got to do some SEO. That's just a piece of ice floating on the water. There's no iceberg there. There's no giant robot. That whole thing underneath there is what you need to build. That's your foundation.
I'm having a total flashback to Carl in the pool at Caddyshack when he was scrubbing it out. Right? Maybe that's not the iceberg or the ice cube that you're looking for. Turns out it was a Baby Ruth. Just spoiler alert. It's kind of floaty.
And on that note,